Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to be looking at this really powerful devotion. It's called God's Faithfulness in the Dark Season.
That title is pretty intriguing.
Yeah, right? It's by Adedeji Oladapo. And, it's all about how, even when things get really tough, those times when everything seems uncertain and dark.
Oh yeah, those seasons we all go through.
Exactly. Well, Adedeji reminds us that God's faithfulness is a constant. It's something we can always rely on.
That's such a crucial reminder, especially when you're in the middle of those dark times. It can be hard to see the light.
Absolutely. So Adedeji starts off with this passage from Lamentations. It's chapter 3, verses 22 and 23.
Oh, Lamentations, powerful book.
Oh, for sure. It says, "Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness."
Wow, they are new every morning. That's beautiful imagery, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me think of no matter what happened yesterday, no matter how bad things were, each morning is a fresh start with God's mercies.
A clean slate.
Yeah. And speaking of Lamentations, it's worth remembering the context of these verses, right?
Oh, absolutely. Jeremiah, the prophet who wrote it, he was going through some seriously tough times.
You're telling me. Imagine the nation was in ruins. There was so much suffering and despair everywhere.
And yet, even amidst all that darkness, Jeremiah could still recognize and proclaim God's faithfulness. It's just incredible.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How can we, in our own struggles, even begin to grasp that same unwavering faith?
That's where Adedeji's insights really come into play. He points us to the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis.
Oh yeah, Joseph. Talk about a roller coaster ride. Betrayal, slavery, false accusations. The guy went through it all.
Seriously? But you know what's so powerful? Throughout his entire ordeal, the scripture constantly affirms that the Lord was with Joseph.
Like in Genesis chapter 39, verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. You see that phrase pop up again and again.
Exactly. It's almost like God is saying, hey, even when things are tough, even when you feel alone, I am right here with you.
And that's a message we can all cling to no matter what we're going through, right? God is present, working things out, even if we can't see the big picture.
Exactly. And ultimately, that's what happened with Joseph, right? What his brothers intended for evil, God used for good.
Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph tells his brothers, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive."
I mean, how amazing is that? It shows us that God's faithfulness isn't passive. He's actively involved in our lives, working to redeem and restore even the most broken situations.
So, the big question is, how can we tap into that faithfulness in our own lives, especially when we're feeling lost and overwhelmed?
Well, Adedeji offers some really practical advice in the devotion.
Yeah, actionable stuff. I love that.
One thing he suggests is to remember God's past faithfulness in our own lives.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Think back to those times when you really felt God's presence, when he helped you through something difficult.
Yes, those moments become these anchors for our faith when we're facing new challenges.
It's like building up this personal testimony of God's faithfulness, right? Each experience becomes a reminder that he's been there before and he'll be there again.
Absolutely. But, sometimes those doubts still creep in, even when we try to remember.
Oh yeah, those pesky doubts.
In those moments, Adedeji encourages us to really cling to the promises found in Scripture. Promises like Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand."
Wow, that's powerful. And what about Romans chapter 8, verse 28? That one's a classic, right? "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose."
Exactly. These aren't just nice-sounding words. They're declarations of God's unwavering commitment to us, like a lifeline when we're drowning in doubt.
But sometimes, even with those promises, it's hard to understand why things are happening the way they are. We get stuck in that waiting mode, wondering when things will change.
Ah, yes. The waiting game. That's where trusting in God's timing comes in. Think back to Joseph's story. It took years, decades even, for God's plan to fully unfold in his life.
It's a good reminder that our perspective is so limited. We might not understand the why behind our trials, but we can trust that God has a bigger story in mind, a story that ultimately leads to our good and his glory.
Absolutely. And finally, Adedeji reminds us of the importance of surrounding ourselves with truth, especially during those dark seasons.
Oh, that's so key.
Engaging in spiritual practices like prayer, worship, seeking godly counsel. These are like antidotes to doubt and fear.
Totally. It's like actively choosing to fill our minds and hearts with truth instead of letting those negative thoughts take over.
Exactly. We're strengthening our spiritual muscles so that we can stand firm even when the storms hit.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into God's faithfulness in the dark season, I think the main takeaway is this. Dark seasons are not the end of the story. God's faithfulness is a constant. It's that beacon of hope that guides us through even the toughest times. And, just like the sun always rises after the night, God's light will break through in our lives too.
That's such a beautiful thought. Hold on to that hope, everyone. Remember God's faithfulness.
If you'd like to read Ayodeji's full devotion, you can find it at devotion.ledwaymission.ca.
And hey, if you're enjoying these deep dives, be sure to subscribe and check out our other episodes on your favorite podcast platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, all those places.
And join us tomorrow for another inspiring devotion.
See you then.
Bye.